In a single moment, your life can change. Moments with Marianne is a transformative hour that covers an endless array of topics with the best of the best. Marianne's guests are leaders in their field, ranging from inspirational authors, top industry leaders, business and spiritual entrepreneurs. Each guest is gifted and a true visionary, a recognized leader in their own work. They teach others to develop, refocus, and grow. Marianne will bring the best guest and sometimes a special surprise. Don't miss this. And remember, make every moment count.
Hello and welcome to Moments with Marianne. Today my special guest is Dr. Bruce Lipton. I'm sure a lot of you already know who Dr. Lipton is. He's a recognized leader internationally for bridging science and spirit, a stem cell biologist, and best-selling author of the book, The Biology of Belief. So let's welcome to the show, Dr. Bruce.
Well, I am so happy to be here, and I want to thank you for this opportunity. And also, I want to thank the audience because I know those people in the audience are looking for a way to improve their lives. They represent cultural creatives. They're looking outside of the conventional box and trying to find answers to the problems that we face every day. And it's really great because the answers are not inside the box. So maybe we can provide some wonderful insights. I hope so.
Oh, definitely. Well, and I've, learned a little bit about you. Obviously there's your awesome book, and congratulations on your 10-year anniversary with it. I saw that you're still number one bestseller. So that's always a good thing.
It's still selling because the good part about it was it was really exciting because it's been 10 years and it's been selling continuously. And Hay House and I talked about it, and he said, well, maybe you should do a revised and updated. So I thought, oh, okay. So I thought, I hadn't read the book in 10 years. And I read it, and at the end of reading it, I was so happy because I said, oh, my God, I don't have to change one word in the original book because it's accurate right up to the minute. And I added about another 40 or 50 pages of science that completely supports everything that I've written about over that 10-year period. So it's updated, but it still has the original exact information in, which I'm so happy about.
Oh, my goodness. Well, I know this has been a lifelong journey for you. I mean, you started off as a kid with a microscope trying to take pictures.
I remember that summer as if it was yesterday. I remember because that was a long time ago. That was before the kind of camera, obviously before digital. This was 60 years ago, and it was film. And my mother had bought me a microscope, not a professional one, but a microscope where I could see stuff. And I thought, I want to take a photograph of it. And the issue was I didn't know how to do it, so I hold the camera above the, where you look into the microscope, and I'd take a whole bunch of pictures and then run downtown and drop them off at a film store and wait 3 days, and then they come back and there was just big round white circles with nothing inside. I was like, and I spent the whole summer, and at the end of the summer I figured it out. If you just pull the camera back away from the lens about a half an inch, you could see something. And a summer project was using like $1,000 worth of film to get a couple of dozen pretty fuzzy pictures of microscope stuff. But that was a start, and it ended up at the University of Wisconsin School of Medicine as a professor in cell biology and histology, and that time working with the electron microscope, which was like so cool. A lot of people, for me, it's like every day I would go into school, I would see something in the microscope that no human had ever seen before. So it was like, to me, it was sort of like Star Trek in reverse. Instead of going far out, it's going far in. And living among the molecules and structures of the cell was like, wow, is this an exploration? And so it was a job that I used to think about sometimes doing the work at the electron microscope. I thought, God, it's interesting. They actually pay me for this because I would pay them to have this opportunity. So it turned out to be a good work experience for sure.
Well, definitely following your passion, kind of seeing that through and following your passion that was, you're definitely put on this planet to follow that and bring this information to life.
It was kind of fun because I ended up, when I was at Wisconsin, I was a professor in a medical school, and I was ending up teaching the conventional curriculum at the time, which was the belief in a concept called, today it's called genetic determinism. It's a belief that the genes control not just our physical structure, but our behavior and our emotions and all the characteristics of life. And in hindsight, when I look back on what was I teaching, I was teaching victimization, meaning I was teaching medical students who were going to talk with their patients, of course, about the reality that their genes were controlling these characteristics of life. And then you think about it, you say, well, wait, as far as I know, I didn't pick the genes I came with. And if I don't like the genes, I can't change them. And these genes control me, and I don't control them. And I think, oh my God, people had the belief they were victims of their heredity. And this profoundly affects people. I mean, when there's cancer running in a family, the recipients of these genes are like, oh my God, I'm living under this death sentence, so to speak, that someday I'm going to wake up, I'm going to have cancer. You get somebody like Angelina Jolie, who then, comes up with the fact that, her mother and her grandmother and an aunt died of breast cancer, has the breast cancer gene, and then she had this double mastectomy and further operations to do what? Prevent that cancer from growing because what? She had the breast cancer gene. And then I go, well, this is real interesting, except for an important fact that people don't talk about, and that is this. Only 50% of the women with the breast cancer gene even get the cancer. And I say, well, why is that important? He said, well, we always focus on the ones that got the cancer, but nobody ever talked about the women with the gene that don't get the cancer. I think that's more important. And it turns out what the simple truth is that we believe that the gene was causing cancer, but the gene does not cause cancer at all. The cancer is caused from other reasons, and having the gene does not mean you get a cancer. So it was like it's time for us to start to recognize that the belief most of us have that our lives and the characteristics of our lives are in some way programmed in our genetics, that is a false statement. And unfortunately, not only false, but it's disempowering and limiting to people, because when people buy that, they buy, I am powerless, and my genes have power and I don't, and the disease has power and I don't. And it's like, whoa, this is completely the farthest thing from the truth, because the new science, which I had the great opportunity of seeing back in about 1970, and the new science wasn't even given a name until 1990, 20 years before the science even showed up. I was already working with the science, and it's called epigenetics. And you say, well, it sounds like genetics. And I go, it's a revolution. And here's what the revolution is. When I say genetic control, I am saying control by genes. But when I talk about the new science and I say epigenetic control, I have to tell you that the epi means above. So when you say epigenetic control, you're literally saying control above the genes. And this is where the new science is. And it's profoundly important because it's empowering. It's self-empowering, because it says, I am not the victim of my genes. I am the master of my genes. I control my genetic activity. And this is very powerful when people understand it. But, of course, most everybody's still programmed with the belief that genes are these things that have their own life and then take our lives, as a matter of fact, through them. And it turns out this is an old belief. It's an incorrect belief. The genes do have an influence. Let me give you a number, though. Let's set things straight. Only about 1% of disease is directly affected by genes. Only about 1%. And this becomes profoundly important, because then I said, well, what the heck is the other 90% plus disease related to? And it turns out it's related to our lifestyle and our programming and our psychology. And I say, and the environment that we live in. I say, why is it relevant? Because those are things I can change. I can change the environment. I can change my belief. I can change the way I'm living. And I go, well, then all of a sudden you're not a victim, are you? Because if you can change these controls above the gene, then you change the readout of your genes, and therefore you're not a victim by any means, but you're actually a master. But if you don't have that knowledge, and you're running the machine with incorrect understanding, it's sort of like, hey, there's an old saying called knowledge is power. And let me give you the other way of saying the exact same thing, but it's more direct, and that is a lack of knowledge is a lack of power. And we have been deprived of this knowledge about how we control our genetics. As a result, we have no power in controlling our genetics. Not that we don't physically have the power, but our belief system does not have that understanding. Therefore, without that knowledge, we are powerless, and then we appear to be victims when, in fact, we control this. And when you understand how you can control it, then you are, again, empowered not to express these diseases. As I said, over 90% of cardiovascular disease is totally lifestyle. Just recently, 90% of cancer has been attributed to totally lifestyle. 100% of diabetes, too, is totally lifestyle. Even we're beginning to find out things like Alzheimer's and senile dementia. Again, part of lifestyle. I said, well, what is all this significant about? I said, well, we're the ones in charge of lifestyle. If we change the lifestyle, then we have power over this expression. And therefore, the belief that illness and, health problems are just a normal way of life will drop out the window, because they only reflect really not anything wrong with our biology, but just the problem in the way we are living and our belief system about that. That's where the changes need to come now.
Now, that's so empowering, because I can remember, I was born in the 60s, but I remember in school they were teaching us, everything's controlled by the genes, and, you've got to pretty much deal with the hand you've been dealt with, and this is it.
Oh, yeah, I know. And that makes you a victim and a patient. and both of them cost you a lot of money, if you think about it.
Yeah.
Because if you take back the power over your health, all this money that's being spent on health care could essentially be saved and used for something quite much more wonderful than, encouraging the illnesses and the diseases, because people don't realize. And, listen, I trained medical students. I'm very close to medicine does miracles, but they're related to trauma. In other words, if I'm in a car accident and my guts are hanging out, I don't want a chiropractor, massage therapist, a naturopath. I want a surgeon. That's who I want in there. I need a heart transplant. Yeah, I'm looking for that person. But what about when it comes to things like, as we talked about, cancer, diabetes issues, high blood pressure issues, things like that? And I go, how effective is medicine? And I go, not very effective at all. Matter of fact, and again, it's not the medical practitioner, because remember, I was teaching medical practitioners. Where's the problem? It was the teaching that was wrong. If you program them incorrectly and then send them out in the field to do the work, of course they're not going to be that successful. And we have been programming beliefs into medical people, which they lay on the patient as, oh, I'm sorry, victim, you're the victim, you can't do anything about this, and disempowering people. And yet the new science is revealing a completely different story. It's a story of self-empowerment, because when you're provided with knowledge of how you work and how biology works and how genes work, then you become aware enough to make them work in your favor rather than to unconsciously provoke ill health and disease. And this is what the new science is all about.
I think it's an exciting time that we live in, where we can have these shifts and not get stuck in the old language. Some of us are.
Well, yeah, but we're still stuck in the old language. If you look at the healthcare situation on this planet, you look in the United States and you see how many millions of people are not insured. They can't afford it. Find a fact: 60% of bankruptcies in the United States are because somebody got sick and they couldn't afford the health bills, and they had to give up their retirement, their house, everything they earned their whole life to pay a hospital bill. This is like something's wrong with the system when it works like that, and it's an unfortunate system, because it's not the medical doctor, it's the system. It's a business. People don't realize it's a business, and businesses work by making profit. And I said, well, how do you make profit in healthcare? And unfortunately, here's how you make profit. You charge people more than the stuff you offer. So basically, they're paying a premium, and they're not getting the product. And the issue is, people are paying tremendous amounts of money, and we have, in regard to the Western nations, we are one of the lowest ranking in regard to health, and yet we're the highest ranking in regard to how much money we pay. Point. Money and health are not equal, that more money equals better health. In fact, it seems to be working the other way around right now. But I want to empower people, and I want them to understand about genes, because the biggest problem stems from the belief, as you learned in the 60s, like, I am a genetic automaton. Genes control me, and I don't control genes. That's the belief, generally. And here's a simple truth. What is a gene? And this is the simple truth. A gene is a blueprint to make a molecule called a protein. A protein is a building block of the physical body. There are about 100,000 different kinds of proteins, like a giant Lego set with 100,000 different parts. And as you assemble them, you can make a liver cell, a bone cell, a nerve cell, a skin cell. They're just all these different parts that are interchangeable, and you can make all these cells out of it. I said, well, the parts are called proteins. I go, yeah. And then I said, well, where do you get the kit to buy where the proteins come from? I say, we just give you the blueprints called the DNA. The DNA makes is the blueprint to make the protein. That's all it is. And you go, okay, so what am I getting at? Here. You go into an architect's office. She's working on a blueprint. You lean over her shoulder and you ask her, you say, excuse me, is your blueprint on or off? And she would look at you like, are you crazy? It's a blueprint. There's no on or off. And I go, precisely. We've been talking about genes turning on and genes turning off. Let me give you the simple fact this is as hard a fact as I can tell you. Genes are, and I'll use a bigger word and then spell it out, genes are not self-actualizing. Meaning, genes have no control over their own function. Genes do not turn on. Genes do not turn off. Genes do not control. Genes are blueprints. And yet, what did we give them? Star status. The genes did this. The genes caused the cancer. The genes did this and that. And it's like, that's wrong. That's not true at all. It was a belief system, and it's now found to be completely wrong. It's the environment and our perception of the environment that controls our genes. And I say that again? I say, it's the environment and our perception of the environment that controls our genes. Then I say, and the significance? You're the one that can change the environment. You're the one that can change your perceptions. And all of a sudden I say, oh my God, then you're the one that controls your genes. I go, yes, that's the new science of epigenetics. But if you're unaware of it, then you could destroy the system with a lack of knowledge. And that's what people are doing. They're destroying themselves because they don't understand. They're creating their health while they keep thinking they're victims of things outside affecting their health. And yet only 1% of disease is even connected to genes. So basically, we've been focusing on the wrong place with a lot of money for a long, long time, and the results reveal that was a waste. That now we're starting to recognize the new science of epigenetics is how you see the world, how you respond to the world, that controls your biology, and therefore you have mastery over your genetics. That's why only 50% of the women with the BRCA1 gene get the cancer. Why the other 50% didn't get the cancer? The gene didn't cause the cancer. It was the lifestyle of the women that caused the cancer. 50% have a lifestyle that encourages their health, and the other 50% were under stress, which becomes the primary cause of ill health in the world we live in today. It's probably up to 90% of health issues are stress. And this becomes important because I don't have to say, go out and learn 100 different kinds of things to enhance your health. I could say, right now, learn one thing. Learn that stress is the issue. And let me explain why stress causes the problem. So it's not just throwing out, stress is a problem. Let me explain exactly why. You ready? And here it goes.
Oh, yeah, I'm ready.
A human body, when we see it in the mirror, looks like one living organism, but that's a misperception. It's a misperception because the truth is a human body is made out of about 50 trillion cells, like amoebas. The cells are the living entity. when I look in the mirror, see Bruce. When you look in the mirror, see Marianne. You say one single human. I go, yeah, one single human, but a single human by definition, is a community of 50 trillion cells. You're not a one thing. The cells are the living entity. When you say the word Marianne, you're not talking about a single entity. You're talking about a single community, but it's the cells, okay? So the idea about this is that biology is based on these cells, and the cells have genetics in them. And then we have been saying that the genes are self-actualizing. That's what we were saying. They turn on and off. Now we find out, no, genes respond to environmental signals. Okay? Now I say, what is stress? Oh, stress is the perception that your environment is threatening. That's what it is. It's not whatever you're trying to succeed at. If there's an interference, whether it's looking for a relationship, looking for a successful job, trying to get healthy again, if that's your destination, and something gets in the way of that destination, that's called stress. Okay? So I say, and then how does that stress affect us? I go, well, that 50 trillion cells that the body is made out of, this number is big. It's easy for me to say, oh, yeah, hundreds of billions with a B, hundreds of billions of your cells die every day. Millions of your red cells are dying right now as we're talking about it. Every day you're losing billions of cells. Normal aging, that's all it is. And I say, yeah, but how do I stay healthy? And I go, well, you have stem cells, that's what they're called. They're actually embryonic cells that are in your body. And I say, what is their job? I say, if I'm losing hundreds of billions of cells every day to stay healthy, I must replace hundreds of billions of cells every day. And I say they come from stem cells, okay? Now, here comes the next part. The digestive system in the gut, and we got all those organs in there. We got the liver and lungs and stomach and intestines and pancreas and endocrine glands and all those things. Everything in the viscera, in your gut. These organs are all involved with nourishing and maintaining the body and reproducing the cells and keeping it healthy and building and taking care of it. And it does so because the energy of the blood is carrying energy and nutrition, and that goes to the gut and provides the gut with all the energy and nutrition needed to maintain and keep a healthy body. And then I say, well, what happens in stress? I go, stress is related to the system, the adrenal system, which in school we call fight or flight, the fight or flight system. I say, well, what does it mean? I say, well, when you're in stress, you forego growth, which is the visceral functions, and engage your energy to get ready for fight or flight, protection. I say, well, how does it do that? I say, this is it. You ready? Stress hormones released with the perception that you're being threatened in some form, or your destination is being threatened. Stress hormones are released into the body. The stress hormones, the first thing they do is cause the blood vessels in the gut to constrict. You say, why would it do that? I go, because when you're getting ready to run from that so-called saber-toothed tiger, you're going to use your arms and legs. And therefore, the body is going to make sure that all the energy to make those arms and legs go, to run away from that saber-toothed tiger, are going to end up in your arms and legs where I need them. I say, well, how do you get the blood preferentially to go to the arms and legs? I go, well, you squeeze the blood vessels in the gut closed, and the blood, therefore, is forced to go into the arms and legs. And that's why when people get nervous or anxious, they feel butterflies in their stomach, the funny kind of feeling going in there. That's when stress hormones are causing the blood vessels to squeeze shut. It causes a fluttering in your gut. And I feel, okay, so what does that mean? He says, well, when you're under stress, you're redirecting the blood flow with energy to go to the arms and legs, and that's going to help us escape. And I go, and at the expense of what? I say, well, at the expense of shutting down the blood flow in the gut. I go, yeah, but what's the blood flow in the gut for? Oh, maintenance of the body, growth of the body, taking care of the body, the health of the body. I go, oh, so the moment your adrenal system is putting out stress hormones because you're in fear, you shut down the growth of the body. and push the blood to the arms and legs so you can get ready to run, save your life. I go, you know, 1,000,000 years ago, this was very important, because if a saber-toothed tiger came after you, man, the only way you're going to escape is to put all that blood in the arms and legs and run like hell and get out of there. But then the part that was interesting 1,000,000 years ago was once you ran away from the saber-toothed tiger, there was no more stress. Only when the tiger was there was stress. So stress was only a short, intermittent part of our lives in those days. Just short, run away, escape, back into normal again. And I say, and what about today? And I go, oh, that stress issue is big now. It's 24/7, 365. In other words, every day we're inhibiting and impairing the blood flow in our gut because of the stresses of life. Will you have enough money? Will your job succeed? Will you stay healthy? Will you find a relationship? Whatever your stresses are, it's continuous. And I say, well, listen, shutting down the growth of the body was okay when you were just running away from the saber-toothed tiger because you'd go back into growth right after you got away. And I say, and today, we don't get away. The stress is continuous. The more stress we're under, the more we compromise the growth of the body. To what extent? You're not maintaining the body when the blood vessels are closed because you're ready to run. And this causes a big problem, especially if you're supposed to replace hundreds of billions of cells every day and you stop doing that. That costs a bit of your life when that happens. So the first issue of stress is this. We need to grow every day regardless of your age because every day you lose hundreds of billions of cells. You throw an impediment, a monkey wrench into the system, stop the growth. And if you stop it for any prolonged period of time because of a continuous stress, then what's happening is the system is not maintaining itself. And as a result, it will break down. That's number one right there. So continuous stress causes a breakdown because you stop maintenance. That's number one. And now let me tell you number two, because these two together are responsible for up to 90% of the problems of health on this problem. And the second one is stress hormones shut down the immune system. You go, why would it do that? I go, well, look, you have to protect yourself from things on the outside like saber-toothed tigers. But you also have to protect yourself on the inside from things like viruses and parasites. So you have two protection systems. Now comes the issue. For fun, let's just say you're in charge of energy production in the system, where the energy is going to go. And that's your job, and you have an office up in the brain. And you go to work Monday morning, and the phone rings on your desk, and it's the stomach. And the stomach is saying, look, there's a bacterial infection down here. We might have a bad case of diarrhea. Can you send us some energy so we can fight this infection? I go, okay, put the phone down. And then you put the phone down, and the next time the phone rings shortly after, now there's a much more excited voice. It goes, oh, my God, we're being chased by a saber-toothed tiger. How much energy can you send us to run away from the tiger? Now, you put the phone down, you do a calculation. And here's the question. How much energy are you going to allocate to fight the bacteria? And how much energy are you going to allocate to run away from the saber-toothed tiger? You got that, Marianne?
Oh, yeah. You're just going to redirect all of the energy.
To run away from the tiger.
Yeah.
Right, because, who cares about a bacterial infection is irrelevant if the tiger eats you. In fact, the bacteria become the tiger's problem, not even yours anymore. So the fact is this, if you can't escape the tiger, then fighting bacteria is a waste. So basically, here's what you just recognized, and that is this. When the stress hormones are released into the system, stress hormones shut down the immune system to conserve energy. I say the immune system. I say, yeah, because think about it this way. When you really use your immune system when you're sick, how much energy do you have? Matter of fact, that's when you find out, I have no energy. I'm in bed. I'm so tired. I'm so weak. I go, where's your energy? It's used by the immune system to fight whatever that thing that's happening with you. So I go, oh, it's a tremendous use of energy for immune system. I go, yeah. So I say, you're running from a saber-toothed tiger? The last thing you need to do is put a tremendous amount of energy into the immune system, because if the tiger eats you, it's not relevant. So here's a fact. Stress hormones, when released into the body, shut down the immune system. It's so effective that it's actually used therapeutically, meaning when surgeons want to transplant an organ from patient A into patient B, remember, when patient B receives that organ, it's foreign. And what will happen is, as soon as they receive the foreign organ, the immune system will start to attack the foreign organ and say, not self, and try to destroy it. I go, oh, well, then before you transplant the organ, what do you think surgeons do? They give the patient stress hormones. They give them stress hormones. For what reason? Because it's going to impair the immune system and allow the foreign graft to be taken. I go, well, that's nice if you're receiving a heart, but what if you're just an average guy on the street and you're under stress? I go, oh, well, you still shut down the immune system. And all of a sudden I say, wait, if you shut down the immune system, now you're opening yourself up to a contagion, infection, things going to come in and take over. I go, yeah. I said, but listen, originally it was just to run away from the saber-toothed tiger, so it wasn't a big impediment. But now we know that it's 24/7, 365. And I say, then what is the consequence of stress? And then I say two things. It prevents the growth and maintenance of the body, which you have to attend to every day because you lose hundreds of billions of cells. And it shuts down the immune system to conserve energy, which then open your system up to infection. So between the problem of not maintaining your body and having it fall apart, and by closing down the immune system and letting infection come in, between those two, 90% of illness on this planet is derived. And the result is, these are things we'd be under control if you knew exactly that the stress was causing the problem. Then the whole thing was, well, then I got to get rid of the damn stress. I go, yes, not taking the drugs and the medications. Those are trying to deal with the consequences of the stress. The first thing is stop the stress, but that's psychological. And therefore, it doesn't require medications and drugs. It requires an understanding of your consciousness. And with that understanding comes power. Because if you understand how you control your biology with your mind, then you can use your mind to support your biology rather than the way almost everybody is using it today to compromise our biology. We have to get out of stress. Stress is not part of our normal life experience. We are programmed to be stressed, to fight and be in the machine, keep the machine running and be stressed. And it's like, wow, that stress is the cause of almost all illness, and therefore stop blaming the genes, stop blaming outside things, start recognizing we ourselves must take responsibility to reduce or at least, limit the amount of stress that we find in our lives, because that's the only way to get your health back, not taking drugs, but by eliminating stress.
On that note, we're going to pause here for a quick break. We've been talking with Dr. Bruce Lipton in regards to the biology of belief, and we'll be right back.
In 2012, after returning home from Iraq and Afghanistan, Sean Gobin hiked over 2,000 miles of the Appalachian Trail. Recognizing the therapeutic effects of long-distance hiking, Sean founded Warrior Expeditions, a veteran nonprofit therapy program that supports veterans transitioning from their military service by hiking America's national scenic trails. Equipment and supplies are provided, as well as assistance with job placement. For more info or to help support these veterans, visit warriorexpeditions.org.
Internationally recognized and award-winning author Judy Goodman works and teaches outside the box of limited thinking. Working with people from every walk of life, her goal is to empower you to be the best you can be, no matter what the challenge is. Born with the gift of seeing beyond our normal vision, she has an extraordinary gift of working with every challenge. Teaching beyond conventional wisdom, her work is described as life-changing. Visit judygoodman.com. That's judygoodman.com.
Have you ever had the sense that your thoughts might actually be doing something? Ancient secrets of manifesting have been masterfully revealed in the award-winning book Manifesting 1, 2, 3 by Ken Elliott. For the first time, the author's experiences and stories in this book describe exactly how your thoughts can create anything. You've been doing this all your life, but it's never been fully explained for you until now. Visit manifesting123.com for more information today. Manifesting123.com.
Are you an author looking for publicity for your book? If you're self-published or have worked through a traditional publisher, Marianne Pestana can help you get the media attention you require. Contact Marianne Pestana, literary publicist and host of Moments with Marianne, to create a winning plan of action. Marianne has helped authors become bestsellers and has received highly acclaimed media attention for her clients. Some of her work has received attention from ABC, NBC, CNN, CBS, Fox, and PBS, in addition to print and radio. She's a specialist in utilizing social media and her list of exclusive contacts to further the reach of your work. Contact MariannePestana.com to discuss the future of your work today.
Welcome back to Moments with Marianne. We're here right now with Dr. Bruce Lipton talking about his book, which has hit its 10th year anniversary, The Biology of Belief, and going over stress. So, Dr. Lipton, I've had a stressful career in the past.
I had a lot of people reporting to me, and I was on 24/7. And, so those kind of, when we accept jobs that come with a lot of stress, there's a lot more that we're actually paying for in these jobs other than the whole, other than just what we would think. I mean, it's really, there's such a negative side to that with the stress factor. I mean, I would
100%. And we start to recognize that things like cancer come from that. In other words, if your immune system was working up to its normal, optimal level, the cancer wouldn't have ever gotten off the ground. But when you impair the immune system, then illness starts to manifest. That's why people, when they get stressed, get sick. Kids at school, they get sick at exam time. People at work get sick at whatever rush thing is necessary. And therefore, the sickness is not an accident. The sickness is a destination if you buy into the stress level. So what'd you do? You just walk off?
Actually, I did.
Great. So did I.
Yeah, it was a quality of life thing. And up in the mountains in Colorado, they have a Buddhist temple, and I rented a cabin and took it was a 6-month hiatus, and basically was just up there, it's pretty much through winter, and just was 10
Well, it's not much to do if you're not skiing.
No, I did a lot of journaling, and it took a while to detox from all the phone calls, because I was on so much, the emails, the phone calls. It was like a month before I started to feel human again, So.
And most people don't. They never get the chance because they go from the one stress to the next stress to the next stress, and then your life is full of this until you get broken. And then we blame the machine. Oh, my biology broke, my body broke. And so it's like, well, I think, it's sort of like this. We look at all the cars in the junkyard. And you say, well, how come all these cars are in the junkyard? Were they built? Are these just crappy cars and they broke down and they're in the junkyard? And it turns out about 90% or more of the cars in the junkyard are there not because the cars were crappy, but because their drivers did not take care of them, or they beat them to death by racing them or slamming on the brakes or whatever, they do is the driver. And only a small percent of cars are in there because at the factory it was built incorrectly. The parallel here is very important. The number of people who are sick, only a very small percent, as we now know, about 1%, were built in a sense of genetics, having a problem. And I go, yeah, but that leaves the other 90-some% of people's illness. And I said, well, no, it's not because of their vehicle, the body. It's because they're drivers of a vehicle and they have really crappy driver education. And so without driver education, they drive the vehicles into the ground and then blame the vehicles like, oh, my heart attacked me or something like that. And it's like, no, wait a minute. You are a driver of the vehicle. If you didn't get good instructions, you got bad driving instructions, your vehicle, like all the other ones, 90% of them in the junkyard will be there, not because there was a physical reason for your biology to fail you, but because the way you drove it, you stressed the system, and the consequence of stressing something continuously leads to it breaking down. And so therefore, when you look at human life, we can subdivide it and say there's a vehicle, a body, and a driver, a mind. And it turns out we've been blaming the vehicle, the body, for all of its illnesses, cancer, cardiovascular disease, heart attack. Your heart attacks you. It's like, I don't believe that's really true. The heart's not attacking you. Why would it do that? It's our not handling our lives in a way that bring ease and facilitation to the heart. We stress the heart, and we stress our lives. And then, as drivers, we are causing the stresses to be expressed as illness. And then when the illness occurs, then we immediately say, oh, no, the body was bad, and that's why I got the illness, and disavow any ownership of driver responsibility. And we must take back responsibility, because now that we find over 90% of health is because of the way we live in the environment, then it really is not to go look for the doctor, but it's to look for how can I live in a more holistic, harmonious, and healthy way in the environment. That's the resolution, rather than what pill can you give me, which is unfortunately a lot of people look for that. And it's like, no, it wasn't the pills that can save you. It's your psychology and your belief system and the way you grew up. You have to change those behaviors.
Well, and I know that you talk about, perception. And a lot of times I use the phrase like misperception, where we're looking at something, inappropriately, or it just with like shaded goggles on in a way. And I know you discuss about the conscious mind versus the subconscious mind. And I could talk with you forever, and I know we've got time here, so I think we can cover this.
Well, what part would you pick a topic, and we'll try and hit that one first, and then go from there.
Sure. So, how does that? How can our listeners take the information that we now know? Okay, so only 1% of illness is controlled by the genes, and 90% is by lifestyle. And in regards to stress, but it's also based on perception and how we choose to view the world. So how does that all relate?
Well, here's the first thing. The mind is controlling the biology. Okay? And I'm going to tell you that as mind over biology. And, that's the mind-body thing. And people say that's so new agey. And I go, no, this is hardcore science. This is hardcore science for this reason. In my laboratory experiments, I produced genetically identical cells by cloning cells. So I have, I put one stem cell, embryonic cell, into a petri dish, and it doubles every 10 hours. So first one cell, then 2, 4, 8, 16, 32, and keeps doubling. And after a week, I have 50,000 cells in the petri dish. And I say, wow, not just 50,000 cells, but 50,000 genetically identical cells, because they all came from the same parent, so they all have the same genetics. So I have 50,000 genetically identical cells, put them into 3 petri dishes, and I grow cells in something called culture medium. And culture medium is the laboratory synthetic version of blood. So when you take cells out of an organism that are normally living and nourished by the blood, and you put them in a plastic dish, you make a synthetic blood that they can live in. So fish are like an aquarium. They live in this culture fluid. And I go, okay, and I make the culture fluid based on the composition of blood. But since I synthesize the culture fluid, I can change some of the composition. So here's the story. I take genetically identical cells, 50,000. I'm split them up into 3 petri dishes. So I have genetically identical cells in 3 petri dishes. But here's what I do. I change the chemical composition of the growth medium, which is like changing the chemical composition of the blood. And so in 3 different dishes, I have 3 different versions of culture medium. And in dish 1, the cells form muscle. In dish 2, the cells form bone. And in dish 3, the cells form fat cells. Now you're left with a very important question. The question is, what controls the fate of the cells? Well, the first thing is this. They were all genetically identical. So you can't start and say, genes cause this. I go, no, genes didn't cause that. They all had the same genes. What was different? The signals or information in the culture medium, in the fluid, in the blood equivalent, the chemistry of the environment was controlling the genetics. So in this environment, the chemistry caused this response, and in this environment, a different chemistry caused a different response. So it's like, oh, the control didn't come from the genes. They all had the same genes. It came from the signals in the environment. So now I go, okay, the environment being the equivalent of blood. Now we go back and look at our human body, and I say, well, we thought was the one thing is 50 trillion cells living under your skin. So I say, oh, well, then a human body is a skin-covered petri dish with 50 trillion cells inside, and the culture medium is called blood. And I go, yeah, that's exactly right. And then I say, and the function of a cell is related to the composition of the blood, just like it did in a tissue culture dish. So to the cell, it doesn't make a difference if it's in a plastic dish or inside a skin-covered body dish. It's still going to respond to the chemistry of the culture medium in a plastic dish or the blood in the body. They're both the same. And I go, okay, so now the fate of your cells, the genetic activity, is not controlled by the genes, but is controlled by the chemistry of the blood. And then we're down to now the next step. I say, where in the body is the chemist? Who's in charge of the chemistry of the blood? I go, the brain is the chemist. It determines what the composition of the blood should be. And now the next and most important question. Well, what chemistry should be put into the blood by the brain? And here's the answer. Whatever matches the picture in the mind. In other words, Marianne, you're sitting there, your eyes are closed, you open your eyes and someone you love is standing in front of you. Your mind interprets love, and it causes the brain to release chemistry of love, which involves dopamine, which is pleasure, oxytocin, which is bonding to your lover, vasopressin, which makes you more attractive to your lover, and growth hormone, which by its name says it adds to your growth. And I go, interesting. When you see love in your mind, the chemistry of your blood has all these wonderful elements that bring you health. And that's why when people fall in love, they're so healthy. And people say, oh, look how they glow. See how healthy they are. And I go, that's the result of culture medium contents that are based on love translated into these chemicals. And those chemicals affect the health of the cells. Then I say, okay, let's go back to the original person. Marianne's sitting there, eyes closed. But this time when she opens them, you see something that scares you. I go, well, you're not going to release love chemistry from a brain that's in fear. When the brain is in fear, it releases stress hormones and inflammatory agents. So I say, oh, then as the picture in your mind changes, the chemistry changes because the chemistry matches the picture. Change the picture, different chemistry. And the chemistry is what controls the genes in your body. So now we're down to this. You have a skin-covered petri dish. You got 50 trillion cells inside. They're living off the culture medium called blood. The chemistry of that culture medium will determine the genetic activity, and the chemistry of the culture medium is a reflection of the mind. As you change your mind about things, you change the chemistry. You can be in love and have one chemistry, be in fear, have a different chemistry. So now we move away from the original story, genes control life, and we're now at the story that the mind's picture is translated into chemistry in the blood, which in turn controls genetics. So if you want to control your life, you don't control it at the cell level, at the blood level. You control it at the mind. As you change your mind and your perception of the world and the environment, you change your genetics. And I go, oh, man. After teaching people they were victims all these years, turn around and say, no, you're the master of your genetics because you are the one that can change your mind and in so doing change your chemistry, which in turn adjusts your genetics. And so there's mindsets that cause disease, which are stress-related, and mindsets that cause health, which are love-related. And then you have to look at your life and start to see, well, where's your mind taking you? Because the mind is going to manifest into whatever chemistry that is representative of the picture that is in your mind. Change your mind, change your biology. That's how people recover from illnesses, is their belief system recovers them from the illness. We say, oh, the medical doctor recovers them. I go, no, really. It's basically your belief system about the medicine. It turns out anywhere from 1/3 to 2/3 of all medical healing is psychology. It's just the belief that, and you say, belief can cause health. I go, come on, Marianne, you know about the placebo effect. The placebo effect is, I believe this is the pill. The doctor told me this is the greatest, newest medicine. It's going to take care of my illness. So I take the pill, I get well, and then I find out it was a sugar pill. I go, well, where'd the healing come from? Not from the sugar pill, from the belief in the pill. And people go, oh, yeah, placebo effect. Having a positive belief about a remedy can cause healing. And I go, yeah, it wasn't the fake remedy, it was the belief in it. And everybody go, yeah, positive thinking thing. I go, yeah, that's what it's about. And then I need to add this part, because most people do not have this balancing part, and that is, what about a negative belief? Because we've been talking about positive belief. What about a negative belief? I go, you ready? It's equally powerful in controlling your life as a positive belief, but it works in the opposite direction. A positive belief can heal you from an illness, and a negative belief, which is referred to as a nocebo in medicine, can actually cause any illness and even death. So in other words, positive thoughts can create health. Negative thoughts can create disease and death. And I was saying, yeah, but what's the central focus? Thought, mind, brain. And this all of a sudden says you want to resolve your issues in life. Don't try and adjust your genetics. First work on your perceptions and your beliefs and your attitudes, because that's the source of over 90% of the problems on this earth in regard to human health.
Wow. And that's so true. I mean, if you have a very positive outlook, I mean, you're enjoying life, things don't throw you in the bushes. You know, I mean, we all have issues and things that come up. It's how we choose to respond to them, you know? So if it's not something that will create this stress, we look at it and go, oh, okay, well, I need to deal with that, and just put it on the to-do list and march on, you know?
Yeah. But now here's the problem. So now we'll just, we should bring this up before we go, because now we have to understand something. I said the mind is making this decision about how our life is going to unfold. But now I have to say there are two parts to the mind, and they're not the same. They're not one, you know, they're not both the same mind. They're two independent elements that work together. They learn in different ways, and they have different functions. And unfortunately, in our belief system, we've been programmed the mind. And I go, no, there's two minds. And if you don't understand the difference between them, then you're going to be lost. And here are the two minds. The original mind is in our human body today, the original mind is called the subconscious. The subconscious is habits and instincts. And the other mind is the newer mind called the conscious mind. And the conscious mind and the subconscious mind have different programs, and they learn in different ways and different functions. You ready?
Yep.
You still there? Okay.
I'm still here.
Conscious mind. Conscious mind is the one the conscious mind is connected to your personal identity, your spirit, your uniqueness, your source. You are in the conscious mind. Your identity. Marianne, you're in the conscious mind, primarily a lobe of tissue right behind your forehead called the prefrontal cortex. This is the latest evolution of the brain, about 10% of the brain. The original brain, the original that's left now is 90%. This is called the subconscious mind. So we have conscious mind, subconscious. And I said, what's the difference? The conscious mind, the newest part, is the creative mind. And this is the mind that can think into the future and think into the past and travel in time and have imagination and all the wonderful things. Our creative mind, our conscious mind connected to our spirit, is the mind that has our wishes, our desires, and our aspirations. So I say, Marianne, tell me what you want out of your life. Whatever answer you give me, by definition, is going to come from the conscious mind because you're creating an idea of a future that doesn't exist right now. So I say your wishes and desires are conscious mind. I say, what about subconscious? I go, subconscious is like a record playback device. It's a habit mind. It's not creative. It's habits. You learn something, then once you've learned it, it's like a program. You push the button and the program plays. And if you learned it at 5 and you push the program button and now you're 50 and you push the program, it's still the same program you learned at 5. It's the recording. Programs are recorded. They're habits, okay? Then you say, well, I'd love to run my life with my wishes and desires with my conscious mind. I go, this is a great idea because then you can create what you want, conscious creation. And then I go, but here's the problem that people don't realize, and science has now recognized, is that about 95% of the day the conscious mind is engaged in thought. And when it's engaged in thought, by definition, it's not paying attention to what's going on in the world around it. So now you're on the phone, Marianne. I say, tell me what you're doing on Sunday afternoon at 3 o'clock. If you actually contemplate that answer, you have to recognize this. The answer is not in front of your eyes. It's in your head. That means to answer the question, you have to let go of what's going on in the world around you. You're not watching anymore. You're now in your head looking for that Rolodex which says, what am I doing on Sunday? And I go, wait a minute. Then if the mind is thinking, it's not paying attention. I say, well, that doesn't mean you stop whatever you're doing because you have a thought. You're walking down the street, you have a thought, you don't freeze, and then the thought's over, and then you start walking again. Or you're driving the car, you have a thought, you're still driving the car. So I say, wait, if the conscious mind is busy in thought, then who's running the show? And it turns out, by default, the subconscious is called the autopilot, meaning if your conscious mind gets busy, then whatever you were doing is automatically now taken over by the subconscious program. And I say, well, how complex are those? I say, they're extremely complex. The job you do, driving the car, walking, talking, communicating, whatever things you do on a repetitive basis become programs. So I say, well then how much of the time am I running from programs, and how much of the time do I have my conscious mind's hands on the wheel and I'm driving the vehicle with my conscious wishes and desires? And it goes, here's the sorry number. Only 5% of the day are you using your conscious mind to drive the vehicle to the destination you want to go, to your wishes, desires, aspirations. Only 5% of the day are you driving it that way. I say, what about the other 95%? I go, it turns out we are thinking 95% of the time. I go, well, what does that mean? I said, well, if you're thinking, then your behavior is not controlled by your thinking mind. The conscious mind is now, by default, run by autopilot, subconscious. I say, then only 5% of the day are we moving toward our wishes and desires. And 95% of the day our life is controlled by our programs and our habits, and the subconscious mind now comes that monkey wrench that blows everything up, and that is this. The fundamental behavioral programs in the subconscious mind are not matching our wishes and desires. As a matter of fact, they are derived from observing other people. The fundamental programs in your subconscious mind you got from your mother, your father, your siblings, your community you grew up in. During the first 7 years of life, you watched those people and downloaded their behaviors via hypnosis. Your brain was operating at a hypnosis level for the first 7 years, and it was downloading other people's behaviors. And so the fundamental behaviors in your subconscious mind do not in any way need to match your wishes and desires because they came from other people.
Well, Dr. Lipton, I'd like to thank you so much for being on the show today. We've kind of run out of time. I'd like to also invite you back. You have so much amazing information on this topic, and I don't even think we've even gotten close to scratching the surface on this. For our listeners out there, you definitely want to check out Dr. Bruce Lipton's website at brucelipton.com, and also make sure to sign up for his newsletter. Go ahead and check out the events that he has available, and get involved with his community. So thank you again. And to all of our listeners, make every moment count.
Join us next time for Moments with Marianne, when host Marianne Pestana brings another inspirational gifted leader to help us grow. Tune in every second Sunday at 8 p.m. Eastern Time for Moments with Marianne, when the Dream Vision 7 radio network is at 1510 a.m. Boston. Or catch Moments with Marianne every Thursday and Friday at 5 p.m. and 5 a.m. Eastern Time by going to dreamvision7radio.com. To learn how Marianne started her business from the ground up, visit mariannepestana.com. Don't miss this, and remember, make every moment count.